What's going on, guys? I'm John. I'm an owner over here at Advanced Fiberglass Concepts, and today we'll be doing an installation on this 2021 first edition Bronco. We'll be doing an install on our hood, our 2-inch fenders, fender liners, and we'll also be doing the full installation on our rear quarter kit. The kit will include a door cap, a rear quarter panel, as well as a rear bumper trim to completely transform the look of this Ford Bronco. All right, so we took the stock hood off. It's a very easy process. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take off the 2 nuts on the hinge plate right on the driver's side and the 2 nuts on the passenger side hinge plate as well. And lastly, there's a latch up front that has 2 nuts as well. Take that off. We're gonna reuse that piece as well onto our hood. And what we did is we taped off the fenders in this location right here on both sides and put a paint mixing stick right here to help guide us when the hood is going up and down for the test fit. And now we're ready to put our fiberglass hood on. All right, so we are finished with the hood, and you can see the lines are nice and tight. We give the OEM a run for their money. And up next, we're gonna move over to the front fenders. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna mask off the hood, the door, and the grille as well. That way we can start taking the parts off and we don't scratch anything. If your Bronco comes with the sliders, you will need to remove them. There are 9 bolts holding the sliders on. Next, you will remove the fender flares from the vehicle by twisting the 5 turn tabs and pull them off the vehicle. Now you will remove all hardware holding the liner to the fender. Up next, we will be removing the grille from the vehicle. We will remove the radiator cover to loosen the grille bolts. Depending on the model that you have, you may have a few connections that do need to be removed. Now we will remove the valance. Remove the 3 bolts that hold the hood handles. Now for the exciting part, we're gonna remove the fender from the vehicle. There are 3 bolts holding it down on the hood line, 1, 2, and 3. There's 1 bolt holding it down at the valance section. And lastly, we have 2 bolts holding it down at the very bottom of the door. We're gonna loosen all the bolts and pull the entire fender off the vehicle to start test fitting our 2-inch fenders. Remove the 3 10mm bolts inside the door jamb holding the plastic cover. Before we start test fitting the fender, there's a plastic piece that is located behind the tire. There are 3 13mm bolts that you will need to remove to pull it off. Use the stock fender as a guide to know which holes need to be drilled out to mount the fender to the vehicle. more than halfway through the process right now. Currently, the fender is just resting on the mounting location. So up next, we're gonna be putting the bolts into the bolt holes. You're gonna wanna just tighten them just enough to where you can still push and pull the fender into the position you want it to go in. All right, so the door gap is all finished. You're gonna notice it's a nice tight line all the way down the door, and it's very consistent. The body line lines up very nice as well. We bolted this middle bolt down, and we also bolted these two fully down. We come over here, up by the valance, we also fully bolted that one down, and you can see at the hood line, right now is a little bit larger of a gap. It's completely normal. I told you earlier in the video to leave the bolts loose so you can push and pull the fender where it needs to go. So you can see I simply push on the fender, and now I have a consistent gap from the front to the back. All right, so we're finished with quite a bit of the install right now. Up next, we're gonna be installing the valance section right here. This is the valance bracket, and we do make some slight modifications to it. And the reason being, we have a flare piece that comes all the way down. It's different than the OEM flares that went on the vehicle. So when we try to slide this piece into this section, it's actually too tight. So what we do is we use a Dremel, and we're actually gonna cut 3 sections on this to slide it in. We just finished modifying the valance bracket. We added 2 inserts right here. They're actually M6 inserts. And the reason that we did this is because it's so tight in this position, we're going to attach this to the valance and install the bracket and the valance together, and then use our bolts to fasten everything together. All right, the next modification is really simple. We will be cutting a portion of the valance off. You won't see it. What happens is this part right here actually pushes the valance down when it gets installed. So we're just gonna cut it right now with the Dremel. All right guys, good news. We just finished up the front end. We put the grill back on, and we also put the radiator cover back on. So the last step is actually just to close up the hood. And up next, we're actually gonna go to the rear. And now we're gonna remove the hardtop. That way we can get to the rear quarter panel to take it off the vehicle. Now that the hardtop is off the vehicle, up next, we're gonna pull the plastic flare off. Following by the tailgate section, we're gonna pull that plastic cover off as well. And lastly, we're gonna take off the rear bumper trim. That way we can pull the entire rear quarter off the vehicle. Now we're gonna remove the sensor to get to the 2 bolts hiding behind it to take off the quarter panel. Now that we have the plastic cover off, as well as the sensor removed, we're gonna start taking the entire quarter panel off the vehicle. There are only a few bolts holding it down. There are 2 in the door jamb area, 3 across the bed rail, 2 down here, and lastly 1 that's hidden back here. Remove the clip at the lower portion of the rear quarter panel, and also remove the gas pod. Now that the quarter panel is off the vehicle, we're gonna start taping the door off. That way we don't scratch anything during the installation process. Now we're gonna drill out the holes on our rear quarter panel. Keep in mind, they're all pre-marked, but take a look at your stock panel. That way you know exactly which holes need to be drilled out. Now that we've drilled out all of the rear quarter panel mounting holes, we're gonna use the modified plastic piece to throw into place right here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna fasten it down first, throw one bolt into the mounting section right here, fasten it down. Now that we have this piece fastened down, we're gonna dry fit this right here. And the plan is we're gonna add an insert to this piece. So we're gonna drill a pilot hole at this point right here. Now we're gonna test fit the rear quarter panel, and we're gonna follow the same process as we did for the front fenders. We're going to lightly tighten the bolts all across the quarter panel. That way we can push and pull it into the correct position. Once you get all bolts lined up, you're simply going to use a mixing stick as a gap between the door and the quarter panel, and then fully bolt down every single bolt. Now we are going to reattach and connect the sensor. Attach the stock rear bumper cap. Test fit the rear bumper cap against the quarter panel and mark the rear bumper cap from the hole we drilled earlier. Drill the marked hole on the rear bumper cap and add the insert. For better adhesion, you will want to sand the backside of the rear bumper cap where we will be adding the double-sided tape to. Clean down the sanded area and add the double-sided tape to the edge of the cap. Now we will install the rear bumper cap to the vehicle by bolting it down to the insert we added and firmly pressing the cap against the vehicle to get proper adhesion. The upcoming step, we will be doing the same process. We will sand down the door cap to have adhesion for the double-sided tape. Apply the double-sided tape to the edge of the door cap. Use a paint mixing stick as a guide for applying the door cap. Clean the door and attach the door cap directly to the door. After, press firmly for proper adhesion. All right, we just wrapped up the installation and we showed you how to do the install on the hood, fenders, fender liners, and the rear quarter kit. So now it's your turn. Thanks for joining us, and if you have any more questions, we're just one call away.